Hi, and welcome to another edition of Better Minneapolis. I'm your host, Terry White. Today, my guest is Bruce Dotchis. He is a resident and commercial builder in the Uptown area, and I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're connected to Uptown and some of your history in the area?
Sure. I've been associated with Uptown and Lynn Lake for almost 40 years. I've had my business first at 915 Lincoln. I had an office over there in Kenwood, and then I went to 2828 Lyndale, and then 2917 Bryant, which is the former Minneapolis Police 5th Precinct, and then 2909 Bryant is where I office now. I also live close to that area. So I've been in the area as a resident for about 8 years now, and as a building owner and operator for close to 40 years.
Okay. So is it safe to say that you know a little bit about real estate in the Twin Cities, right?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
I mean, real estate is specific to neighborhoods and or types. So, you know, I did have a lot of experience as in a multifamily for my first 20 years of employment and owning my own company, and then went into the commercial area in the early 2000s.
Okay. So the reason that I asked Bruce here today is we're going to talk about a commentary that was published in the Star Tribune on May 26th. It's titled, Stop Scapegoating Homeless People for Uptown's Problems. So Bruce is here today to help me go through this article and sort fact from fiction. Starting from the beginning here, Christian Heller is the author, and he points to the vacant big box stores, if you imagine them around Hennepin, as one of the reasons that Uptown is experiencing a downturn, and he claims that landlords are holding these hostage as part of their passive real estate speculation portfolios. So my question for you is, how accurate is that? And then what else do you think can be done with these buildings? Because I have heard the mayor speak about wanting what he calls more doors, meaning he wants them broken up to make room for smaller and independent stores. And the author in this article says that the landlord should be penalized if they don't do something with the buildings because they're profiting from this emptiness.
Well,
is that true? Are people profiting from the emptiness, and are these the tokens of some sort of speculation happening?
The author is ridiculous. His comments are not based in reality, period. So let's let's address the big box thing first. It's not Maple Grove, it's Minneapolis. A big box store that we would, let's say, develop, a minimum size would be, let's say, a small Best Buy is 30,000 feet. Most Best Buy stores are 45 to 60. Grocery stores are 60 to 100,000 square feet. Those would be big boxes. Bed Bath & Beyond, 35,000 square feet. There's not a store in Uptown, and with no disrespect to the mayor, he is not a real estate guy. So Urban Outfitters was there for 30 years and did well. The Apple store, I think, was there for 10 plus years. Kitchen Window, which is a pretty big store, but I would say under 10,000, maybe 7,000 feet, also there 30 years. Jute Salon on the corner, which is now a weed store, unfortunately, was there for 30 years. These are not big box stores. Even the Victoria's Secret, which was built originally as a Gap, took out Mr. Uniform, which is the family that owned that a long time ago, a small store. That's not a huge building, and it's a 2-story. Does it fit in Uptown? No. The owners could have rented it to Chase. They decided they wanted more money or whatever. I'm not sure the reasoning behind that. So it could have been a Chase bank plus offices for Chase, because that's what they looked at. I do know that because I negotiated a lease with one of my own banks when they came into the area, a Chase bank. So these are not big box stores. These are 5 to 10,000 square foot stores, which seem large relative to, like Majors and Quinn is probably, I'm guessing, in that category size. The reason that those stores left is not because they were outmoded or people didn't support them. It's because during the riots and subsequent to, George Floyd and COVID, there were no police. The owner of the kitchen window sat in his store every night with a shotgun and a rocking chair so he could.
That's old school.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I mean, that was his livelihood. They had cooking classes there. It was a
Yeah, it was
vibrant,
nice.
great store that should and could still be open. That's city responsible. There no police. What are you going to do? I remember one night when I was in Uptown, in the Apple store, they were unloading merchandise. Thieves broke in. No police came because they didn't have any police to come. And they just cleaned out the store, millions of dollars of inventory. Apple doesn't need that shit. They don't, why stay there?
Yeah.
Urban Outfitters was there for 20 years for sure. I think they've been there a staple. Once again, not a big box store. To convert those spaces to multiple tenants, you might get a Carmel Mall, which is weak from the standpoint of financial strength for the landlord, and also, I don't know what kind of businesses are going in there, but I'm guessing the kiosk business is not a surviving way to furnish or fill up those spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are probably picturing something like the Midtown Global Market or, Carmel Mall or one of these where you have a larger space and then and I think right across the street they divided a place up into like these closets where people rent a space and they put their clothes there. But again, I think that's subsidized by the city. So
it's not economically viable, Terry. I mean, you can't pay the Uptown price and all the taxes that are associated with it, and it's just not a feasible way to look at it. We, for decades, Uptown survived. I would say the Uptown, what are they called? 7 corners now, or 7
points.
7 points. That was. I think the guy's name was Harris that developed it. It was poorly thought out, in my opinion, at the time, because it was a mall. In Uptown, did it work? Yeah, they had Filios, they had businesses there that were thriving for some time. 2 stories, a lot of open space, but that's not really what works today. So that mall could maybe be reworked into something else, because no one wants to pay for that extra space on the interior. That would be CAM charges, which are common area maintenance. So that was probably not a great plan for the Uptown area. It could have been a bunch of stores, but that's evolves with real estate. People like, Southdale and Brookdale and Rosedale and all of the major regional malls that were built with that kind of lifestyle in mind. And, now we shop at Amazon and some other places that don't require us to have spaces or hanging out in the mall. We go to the store, walk in the front door, buy our stuff, and leave. And, that strip center, even in a big box format, still works the best today.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, one, maybe these spots don't meet the definition of being a big box, like some of the big mall stuff that you're talking about.
Well, they're not.
Specify.
They're just not.
So, but are they, do you think they're too big to have someone else come in? Like maybe it's not Urban Outfitters, but someone else? Or does something need to be done to these buildings to get people in there?
Okay, easy answer. So, not easy answer. When we look at a development, like Walgreens or CVS, they're 15,000 square feet. Those are buildings that are not big boxes, but they appear kind of bigger than most stores that would be, let's say, in Uptown that are 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 feet. They're hard to retrofit. I mean, number one, you give away hallway space and some others, so your 15,000 square foot space becomes a 10 or 11. Can that work? Sure. If you get higher rent per foot than you were getting, it can work. But, it's not as simple as to retrofitting. I'm not sure I want a Carmel Mall in Uptown that situation. I'm not sure that it would work. It may work in part of Uptown or whatever. I don't think Uptown is going, I mean, I think the mayor is dead wrong when, stuff won't come back. I mean, we could have a bunch of restaurants up there. It could be like Eat Street. However, that's a function of, taxes and police protection and foot traffic, and all of those things are absent right now from Uptown. That's why nothing is surviving. If George Floyd and COVID didn't happen, or let's even say George Floyd, and there wasn't the criminal activity and the lack of police, we probably would have a thriving Uptown similar to what it was.
Mm-hmm. So I think someone is buying the Apple.
Someone bought it.
Someone bought it. Do you have any idea what's happening there?
I don't. The guy who bought it, I believe, is the person who owns Lucky Shots Pickleball Northeast. I could describe to you what he looks like, but I can't remember his name.
I asked because I'm just wondering if his intention is to keep it the same size, or if he's going to try and break it down, or maybe you don't know.
It's not that big of a space. I mean, people don't realize that it's just not that big of a space. Hennepin and Lake did not accommodate giant footprints for stores. It just didn't. There's not, you don't have, I don't think there's a 20,000 square foot building anywhere in.
So when the mayor says stuff like more doors, is that, I guess I could maybe picture it a little bit with the, the Victoria's Secrets. Maybe you break it up, put some doors along.
Victoria's Secret would work very well. It's a 2-story building, though, so that's generally kind of a death thing for retail. It's a mini mall in its sense, but it worked well for Victoria's Secret or the Gap because they have a lot of merchandise, and they, there's limited space, so they wanted that amount of space at the time. That would be more conducive to breaking up into smaller spaces.
Yeah, it does take a certain amount of commitment, right? When you go into retail, to go upstairs or into a basement. Yeah. It's got to be like, I'm really committed to this store. All right, so what we're seeing, I guess, is not a lot of what he would call passive real estate speculation.
Well, I mean, look we have crime, reduced foot traffic because of crime, remote work, construction disruption, consumer behavior shifts, which are part of that. But it's not big box blight. It's basically all of the things that are external to operating a real estate or piece of real estate were caused by forces that were not real estate related.
I think one of the things that got me interested in talking about this piece, and I hear people talk about, is they're really trying to create a narrative around who's responsible for what's happening, right? And, often, you just name, there's 6, 7 things that contribute, and not all of them can be placed on the landlords, right? Some might be, maybe someone's holding out to get rent or whatever it is, but to act like they're totally and fully responsible for what's happening seems like a stretch to me.
Are you suggesting by your comment that the landlords intentionally withhold the space from occupants because of let's say they want more rent?
Well, I'm saying that if they're not going to drop the price on a building to $1,000 or something, right?
Well, that's true because that's it. Well, there's 2 schools of thought. Number one, if I'm getting $25 a foot rent, then that's what I want to maintain because the integrity of my holdings are in that range. For me, it's different. I'm going I don't want dead space because dead space costs me money. So I'm willing to maybe I'll give you a 5-year lease or a 3-year lease or a 10-year lease, depending on the kind of property it is. And I'll take less because I want to cover my debt service. I want to cover my real estate taxes. I want to cover my maintenance. And I'd like to have a full building, whatever. And I'll come back to fight another day. Maybe it's in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Rental situations may change and Uptown may return to its former glory, which I believe is the case. Now, the writer of that article is, I don't want to, I mean, I could give you a harsh description of what his intelligence level or his educational.
Well, maybe we don't need to go there, but what's the intention of it? I guess that's
I don't
what
know
I
what
was
the
trying.
intention. The intention is never to have a vacant space, period. Because
No, I mean, but I think the intention of the article is to try and,
blame.
yeah, shift everything that's happened there onto, sort of,
Landlords.
yeah.
Yes, it's pure folly. It's ridiculous. No one keeps their buildings vacant. If you get $1 and you have to give 50 cents of it back, and so you're losing, and you're not getting the dollar anymore. So you're still giving you're losing money, but you're getting a 50% or a 40% credit on your taxes, let's say, for simplifying this.
Yeah, before you go there, I'll just read a little bit more of what they talked about, because I think that's what you're referring to. So they wanted more affordable houses in Uptown, and Heller argues that property owners who hold vacant space hostage would rather use it as a tax write-off than provide stable homes for the community. And this is an idea that I feel like I've heard people repeat numerous times. I mean, to the point where it's like just accepted wisdom that a business owner or a property owner would rather take a loss than to have people in the building paying rent. So
An idiot comment. And I'm getting trashed for that probably.
Well, maybe and maybe you could
no, I mean there's
spell it out a little bit
I
more
will
as
spell
to
it out.
why that doesn't make sense.
Okay, I will, but it's an uninformed, uneducated comment that someone should not be making, especially in a commentary in the paper, because it is totally false. No, I mean, you still have to pay taxes, you still have security costs, you still have debt service, you still have insurance, and you're not, and those are real costs that come out of your checkbook every month. Now, if I don't have that offset, I'm losing money. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and if I'm losing money, no matter what I get for a credit, if I'm not collecting any money, but I am paying costs, I can take a write-off, but if I get 40 cents on every dollar I put in, how long will you stay in business? If you give me $1, but I give you 40 cents back, that's my tax credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many dollars do you have before you're done? You
Yeah.
don't. I mean, $1 is $1, but now you have no dollars and you're getting a credit. It's pure folly. It's fantasy. It's ridiculous. The comments are so, and I just have to say stupid, because no one would do that. There's no basis for having vacant space, period.
Okay, so going back to this tax idea, and like that losing money somehow is actually making money, which seems to be the idea that they're pushing. I know
It's economic illiteracy.
Right. There's another factor here that I've heard too, is that like sometimes an owner will have to put forward some of their own money to like secure a building, right? Like, and
Of course, because who else is going to do it?
and so like let's say you invest 20% of your money and then you take a loan out for 80%. I don't know if that's
Okay, you're talking about on a purchase now.
on a yeah,
Okay.
right. So then, but if you let that building be vacant and all of a sudden decide, well, even though I say my costs for the loan and everything are $100,000 a month, but I'm going to go ahead and accept rent of only $60,000 because, I'm losing.
That's the market.
Right.
Maybe.
But what I've heard then is that like banks look at that, right? And now all of a sudden you're either asked to put forward more cash or you have to pay off that loan, right? Because you're essentially saying whatever you agreed to buy that building for is really no longer worth that much.
That can be the case depending on, your loan covenants, for sure. But typically, development, we're a very conservative development company. So, and there's no way, by the way, that I've never heard of real estate commercial real estate that you could borrow and, 80%. It's more like 70% or 60%.
Okay. Well, that's why I have you here, because I'm not the expert.
I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, there are probably banks, but if you're borrowing to, let's say you're going to own the McDonald's on Lagoon and Hennepin, and you're buying that building. If it had a super strong lease and it was a corporate McDonald's, you might be able to get better terms as far as rate and term, but you're not going to get. You need the equity most. Unless you have a really strong relationship with lenders and a lender that does a lot of that, you're going to put up more money than that. So you're going to have more at stake, and as an owner than 20%. Be more like 30% or 40% in some cases.
So is it safe to say building owners around Uptown have at least 30% of their own dollars invested in properties, and that is there any, I guess, to flip this question around, is there any economic argument that you can think of that would make sense that they would purposely allow these buildings to be vacant, right? No. Because this commentary is saying he knows the reasons. And
it's economic illiteracy. He does not know the reasons. Those are not, to pretend that someone would want an empty store and throw money at it every month, especially in a down market, which Uptown, Hennepin Lake is. There's so much vacant space, you can't fill it. If you want to fill it, someone with a brain is going to pay less money to fill that space. Now, his commentary also includes, pretending public disorder and things like that don't affect value. So they do. And, no one wants to be in a blighted area. No one wants to have an empty building. No one wants to pay. There are no tax benefits, I'm going to say, that are reasonable that you would ever leave your space vacant. Period.
I think there is some tax advantage, but it's not to the magnitude that you would.
No, there's not a tax advantage, and I'll tell you why. Yes, you get a credit. That's not an advantage. I wouldn't use it as an advantage. I'm gonna say, like, if I put $1 in every day, and I only get back 40 cents of my dollar, I'm out of business pretty soon. Yeah. Okay. Period. That's how it works. And is it a write-off? Sure, I can write off. I get 40 cents back on my dollar, but I will run out of dollars eventually because I won't have any more dollars if I only get 40 cents back.
So you touched on a little bit there. Another thing that the author, I think, so they talk about homelessness, and they want to say that this isn't at all part of the problem for the area. And I think they leave out a lot of things that have happened in the last 6 years. It hasn't just been homelessness. There's also been some open drug use, a lot of drug use, and vandalism, and different things that they tend to ignore. And they advocate that we need kind of like just open, empty spaces for people to sit down, and it's okay if homeless people take advantage of that and just sit down. Well, from what I think I've heard a lot of people in the community say is that allowing these encampments or drug areas to just sit there in Uptown, it hurts business, right? So this no trespassing ordinance has been enacted, or it's always been on the books, but it's never been enforced. And now they're enforcing it. So if a business owner puts a no trespassing sign in their window, they're ticketing people, or I think if they're repeat offenders, they might be
I think they're arrested. Three strikes, and then you're banned from the area.
So do you feel like this program's working, or does it need to be tweaked, or what do you think of this program? And kind of Heller's comments that what was happening wasn't part of the problem for Uptown.
Well, once again, like pretending public disorder has no economic consequences is ridiculous. If I'm a parent, so Uptown had heavy street traffic, which it has none now. There's limited people, vehicle or otherwise, that are going to these businesses that are still left, because it looks like a ghost town. If you go northeast, it's not like that. If you go downtown in the North Loop, it's not like that. And I blame, our council person in the 10th Ward, Aisha Chugtai, who doesn't give a shit about Uptown or businesses or whatever. And they think that people are not going to, or they're going to continue to go. If I have kids, I'm not going to Uptown necessarily, because I don't want them to see open drug use. I don't want the homelessness. Now, it's not demonizing homeless people or drug addicts. It's the reality that I don't need to go. We all have eyes. Parents see it. You're up there. That's not what you're going to Uptown for. The fact of the matter is that we're not trying to tell anybody anything but the economic consequences of allowing open drug use and homelessness to exist in storefronts, et cetera, without any consequences. And I think, the harm reduction model is pure folly, and it has proven to be in most every city that they've tried it, including this one. So that's a real consequence. People do not want to go. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not looking to, go out to dinner and call me an asshole if you want, but I don't need a homeless guy that I have to walk over to get into the restaurant. And I don't have to have drug use. That's every day, every night. I have cameras on my building. Every single night at between 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning, there's a woman who's I would give her credit. She covers herself up before she shoots up. And how do I know she's shooting up? Because I see her preparing her needle on the camera. And then she puts her coat over her head and shoots up. Now, if I had a retail business that woman was there, no one's coming to that retail business because they don't want to deal with what could be a volatile personality because they're on drugs.
Yeah.
And it's not demonizing drug use. It's just reality and economic reality. And the writer has no basis in fact for anything he says other than it's fantasy land.
Yeah, I mean, I think they want to, you want to be accepting, recognize, okay, someone has a disease or a problem, mental health or substance abuse, whatever. That is, that's difficult for them. They're still human. You want to treat them that way. You want to help them get, what they need to
be better.
To be better.
Right.
But you can't ignore at the same time that their presence is going to have an impact on the neighborhood.
A disruptive impact, correct.
And I feel like they want to ignore those things. They want to say that you can just have an encampment there, there are people, leave them alone, and businesses, just make do. That doesn't work,
And I invite Christian Heller to, if he wants to take in a homeless person or two, here's an open offer. I'll pay for their food and their clothing if you let them live with you. Because guess what? You don't want them to live with you either because it's a scary factor. I'm not saying they're horrible people. They're people with problems.
Yeah.
Drugs are a big problem. The fact of the matter, you talk about the trespassing thing. Is it good or bad? I think it's good. You either, you have to follow rules. We're a society with rules and order in order to maintain the integrity of our society, right? If we throw out all rules, then it's a free-for-all. And I don't think that really serves anybody.
Yeah, I think that it is, from what I can tell, it is being handled pretty well by the police. I think just having the police in the area has made a big difference.
100% agree.
I was just reading today about some more new restaurants that are coming to the neighborhood. So it definitely seems to be having an impact. And, hopefully it continues and Uptown continues to come back. I think one of the other contributing factors that isn't covered in Heller's argument is more about the road construction, and not just the construction itself, which goes on for several years, but then, what's that infrastructure that's there after construction's over. I saw you speak recently at a meeting where people were trying to convey their thoughts to the mayor about what's happening at Lyndale Avenue in terms of what they want the reconstruction to look like in Lyndale. Maybe you could summarize what you talked about during that meeting, and in your estimation, what does Uptown need in terms of transportation infrastructure to be healthy again?
I think Uptown would be healthy for a number of reasons or a number of ways without, changing the way the traffic patterns and what they've done on Hennepin Avenue and they're going to do to Lyndale. I'm not an anti-biker. I think biking is great. I don't know why they didn't extend Bryant from Lake to Franklin so they have one bike boulevard. I'm kind of pissed off when the bikers say, well, we want to have Lyndale. Or you don't want commercial corridors. Number one, they're more dangerous. There's more traffic. There's 30,000 vehicles a day on Lyndale. I think they came up with 200 bikers a day, something like that. Great. But why don't you just ride down Bryant? You're on your bike. You're doing it for exercise or whatever. You can go 2 blocks over at any time to cross over to Lyndale. And the same thing would hold true for Nicollet. I think Pleasant or Blaisdell is also a bike boulevard that it's a bigger street. They could easily do that. But they're so rigid in their ideology, the bike lobby, that they want what they want and they don't want to have any negotiations. Part of that is pollution. Well, I'll tell you what, Saturday I came home 9 o'clock at night and I'm on Franklin and Hennepin and traffic was blocked up to 28th Street. So it took me 20 minutes to get from Franklin, 8 blocks on Hennepin Avenue. Now, guess what? Cars are idling. They're in, if you want to get rid of pollution, you move vehicles faster. It's pure folly to believe that, if you're older, you're going to be riding your bike. It's pure folly to believe that I'm going to go to a grocery store on my bike. I'm not going to do it, and most people will not do it, and that's a fact. So I'm okay with bike lanes and bike whatever, but commercial corridors are not where they should belong. And I just want to finish that thought with respect to businesses that go out. It's going to be tough enough construction alone, even if they kept the road as it is, for those businesses to survive because no one's going to get to them. You heard, I think, in that same night that people were having difficulty with robberies, et cetera. The police can't get to them because the road's dug up. So if they want to rob the store, there's no way for them to get the perpetrators to get arrested because the police can't even get there. It's tough. I feel bad for them. It is. I mean, any construction. I have a place in Burnsville that's on 35W and Burnsville Parkway. There was it's still a gas station. And that property, the profits dropped to slightly over break even from a huge profit that has been going on forever. It's a Holiday Circle K gas station. And that's construction. So it's going to be tough on the Lyndale people to add more to their 2 years of, road construction with, people can't park or a dedicated bus lane. I don't think it matters if we have a dedicated bus lane that gets you to Franklin 3 minutes faster. I mean, ride the bus, get on the bus, ride the bus. It's taking you 3 minutes longer or 5 minutes. That's how it is. Do we need bike lanes up and down? No, we have a bike lane 2 blocks away. So
several things that I heard that night that kind of, gave me pause or I found impactful. One is when I first moved here 20 years ago, we used to take a bus from Lake Calhoun downtown. I briefly worked at Target. Bus was packed. And someone brought that up. And I thought that was,
very valid.
Yeah. Like if we were still packing them in and they were going down Hennepin to downtown, then it makes sense. And their argument.
But do you really need to get there 3 minutes faster or 5 minutes faster from Lake to, because you do get to the jam at one point anyway, right? I mean, we're talking about 10 blocks of changing the road to a high-speed bus lane or a dedicated bus lane and then not having it dedicated after that. So
And I would even, I would want to see the speeds that it's actually even speeding things up because, yeah, I mean, people don't necessarily respect the bus lane. There's all kinds of things going on that street. So I don't know. Maybe it does speed things up.
I would posture to say that we're polluting more now with the way that they've designed the roads both on Lake Street and on Hennepin than ever before. Now, having said that, if there's no business, then that traffic will fall off and there won't be as much pollution. But guess who's going to shoulder the burden of those businesses being gone on a tax level, whether you're a renter or an owner of a home?
Well, and the businesses being gone, that was an interesting point that someone brought up too, is like no biker has ever like stopped there and bought goods from them, right? And you'll hear this argument that having the bike lanes and stuff contributes to more business and this and that. But when you hear the business owners talk about it, that's not exactly true. I mean, how many people could buy a board from the hardware store on their bike? It's
that
like
holds true with everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And then obviously the parking being gone, a lot of business owners think that's going to really impact them. And it just seems there's an attitude of like, we can ignore that. Whatever the business owners are saying, they're just being big complainers. And there's, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding that some of them, and maybe some of them do have enough financial runway that they can do the construction and they can take a loss in business, but not many are in that. I mean, there's most of them are very small, and I think they get, as one of the speakers said, lumped in with like, oh, that's Elon Musk. I don't care about him.
That was one of the most ridiculous comments I heard. And the other one, no offense to the mayor, but it's only 27% of the parking that will be gone. So my answer to that, or my question to the mayor and anyone else was, how about if we take 27% of your salary?
Yeah.
And then tell me how that feels and how that works for you. Because 27% is a lot.
Yeah.
And if you have 10 spaces and now you have 7, and you're already short of parking anyway because there's not a lot of spaces. In the old days when Lisa McDonald was the 10th Ward councilman, part of the deal was if you wanted to open a business, you had to have parking. If you wanted to build an apartment building, you had to have parking. It cost more money. You could have done underground. Spaces are expensive, but that's how that works. Now you don't have to have any parking. Thank you, Lisa Bender. I'm glad you're out of the city where you have parking in Minnetonka when you go shopping at Ridgedale or wherever you go. Like you screwed the city. You're probably one of the worst things that ever happened in the 10th Ward and also in Minneapolis. But it's ridiculous. You can't take away that many parking spaces. There's also snow removal. There's safety factors. There's the middle lane that's going to be gone. I think that everyone will adjust if the business lobby will kill me for this, but the reality is that everyone will adjust to whatever it is. It happens in New York City. There's small, narrow streets, and they put the garbage out on the road, and the snow gets removed. It's not the same harsh climate we have here, but they'll survive. Will they get through the construction process for the next 2 or 3 years, and could we make it easy for them to have a better road that works for everybody? Yes, and I think that's the way to go, but the bike lobby and some of the people you heard at the meeting would say, we're not moving. We're immobile. This is how it should be. You heard the tenor of the meeting. So
what I haven't heard, what I still don't really understand is why the median in the middle of the roads. I mean,
that is the most effed up idea there is, because you can't, what's already been proven, it's in evidence right now. If you wanted to go, so the Lowry and Red Cow closed. Those are both businesses. Well, Red Cow was Green Mill, as you know, and the Lowry, I think, was there for 15 years. And they're part of a chain of restaurants that are local in Minneapolis, including Free House downtown and I think the Mall Chop and some other stuff. They know how to operate a business. They were unable to operate because if you go down, if you're going south to north on Hennepin, you can't get to their deal. It takes 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not driving around for 15 minutes. And they have their own parking lot. And same with Green Mill. The reason is it's too difficult and people don't want to they want to drive in and go eat. They don't want to drive around for 15 minutes looking for how to get there or a parking space.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that Kowalski's going to do. It's the same. You can't turn into that parking lot. And
Well, you can if you're going north-south, right? And it's the same deal. Now that Kowalski's, probably feeds more of the west side of the street than it does the east side, is my guess. Because there's a lot of grocery stores in the neighborhood. You have Kowalski's on, 24th, I think, 24th and Hennepin. And then you have Cub on, which has recently been remodeled. You have Aldi. So there's, Byerly's and Lund's. You have a ton of grocery stores in the neighborhood. I think everyone, those won't be hurt as much because they're, I guess, people shop where that's an easy access for the western part of that street. But
so
I'm not going there.
So that kind of covers the article. I want to make sure that we kind of end on somewhat of a positive note. I think that we've kind of pointed out some of the issues with that article. What, in your mind, what are the chances or what are the good factors that are going to help Uptown, I don't think it's ever going to be what it was. But it's going to be something different, right? There's that giant Doran apartment buildings going up, so there's going to be more people just because of that building, I guess.
People want businesses, though. They want to go to restaurants. They want,
But tell me something good that you can see happening for Uptown in the next 2-3 years.
Okay, I'm optimistic about Uptown, and I live in Uptown.
Mm-hmm.
I'm optimistic because I see what's happening in the North Loop. I see what's happening northeast. It's vibrant community and a lot of activity. I think that Uptown is being held back primarily because of the 10th Ward council person who's a do-nothing council person. I mean, they don't show up for meetings. They don't really care. They run on their own agenda, which is a democratic socialist agenda. And I don't think, we can have that in our city if we want to be successful. I don't think any community, you could go to, any of the wards and you'll find that the wards that are well run are run by people that aren't DSA. I think that Uptown can luckily Elizabeth Schaefer is on one side of it, and hopefully that will overcome the negative on the other side. But I believe that, there's a lot of people there. They want to be close to the lake. It's a great place to live. It's walkable. I think that it will bounce back. Our police presence has helped. I think the trespassing ordinance has helped. I think that people are getting smarter. The fact that the Uptown Art Fair is coming back, and we have some protection, if you will, from having more police presence. I think that will all make a change. Now, will it be different? It's not that long ago that we had something. Patterns change because we've had to change our patterns. We weren't going up there because maybe people were not certain that they wanted to be around drugs or homelessness or lack of police and risk their safety to go have a hamburger. Now I think that has circled back to we're feeling a little safer, and the word will get around and people will come back. I don't think it's going to be much different than it was. I don't know what's going to happen at 7 Points, different kind of deal, but that housing at the corner of 31st and Hennepin is going to be a major plus for the area, but it's also going to be a plus for attracting more businesses that are absent at this time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I agree. I think there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing going on, right? Where you need more people in the area to have eyes on the street, and then the safety, the word on the street circulates that it is safe, and then businesses want to be there, but kind of the businesses want to see the people on the street before they come there and stuff like that. But
yeah,
in fits and starts, it seems like things are moving in the right direction now.
Well, having been, so over the last 8 years, and this year has been the best year that I've noticed in 8. Last
okay.
year was better, or was a little bit less than this year. So I'm optimistic that people, there's more activity or whatever that is positive. We're seeing less tagging all over, my area. And I think that the people that are moving in are more, they're more caring for the neighborhood than in the past, where we had some kind of lawlessness. So I think that, the construction is going to hurt the businesses, but, hopefully we'll continue to support them if you live in the neighborhood, and they'll get through that. Hopefully they'll come up with a road design that is not draconian the way that it's set up right now. I think that, no, I think we're on the upswing, and I believe that that's the case. Otherwise I wouldn't stay.
Well, great. I think that's a wonderful way to end today's conversation.
Okay.
So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.